9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Discussing everything about the afterlife and spirit world. Coming to you all the way from Ireland. It's Sandie Byrne.
This is Sandie, host of the Life AfterLife podcast. I want to invite you to become a patron of the podcast. For just €5 per month, you will get ad-free content, video episodes, exclusive events and discounts throughout the year as a thank you for your support. Check out the link to my Patreon page in the description box attached, or go to Patreon and search for Life After Life with Sandie Byrne. Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Life After Life with me, Sandie Byrne. And with me today, I have a very spiritual Swiss gentleman joining me all the way from Pennsylvania in the United States. And his name is Simone Luthi. Am I pronouncing your surname correctly, Simone?
Yeah, perfect. Hi, Sandie.
How are you doing? And thank you for joining us here on Life After Life, because I was looking at your bio and you have a whole lot of stuff to share with us. And some people are going to find this so interesting because, just in short, you come from a background, a corporate background, and then your health took a turn for the worst. So can you talk us through how you got onto the spiritual path?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, thanks for having me, and it's such an interesting topic, and we'll kind of come back to the afterlife probably here in a few minutes, but I think it's important perhaps just chat about how it all started. For me, really was when I was 4 years old. I saw an angel, and excitedly would share that with other adults, and unfortunately most of them said, stupid child, that doesn't exist, you cannot see that. And I think I sort of just killed my abilities. For me, it was all something that probably didn't exist. And so fast forward almost 40 years later, I found myself with an autoimmune. I was in at a spiritual retreat in the Dominican Republic, and all of a sudden gotten sick. So I had pain in my shoulders. Nobody could really figure out what it was. I'm one of those typical mystery illnesses that Western medicine is struggling with. However, that said, in my perception, in my life, stuff happens for you. It's just a matter of, can we actually see the truth, and can we see what it really is that's happening here? And in my case, really, that started in 2016, where I couldn't get out of bed. I was completely swollen. My hands were swollen shut. Couldn't dress myself properly, and what you do when you're here, you go to the best hospitals in town and try to figure out whether they can they help you. And unfortunately, they really never got to the point of what was going on. They just knew I was inflamed. So I got a diagnosis of something called a seronegative inflammatory arthritis, which means you're inflamed. We don't know why, and here's some pills. Go home.
I'm going to pump you full of steroids. I bet you they gave you bottles of steroids.
But Sandy, I have to say, the doctor did one thing, and he did me a humongous favor. He said to me, Simone, you have this medication that I want you to take, but I need you to go see an ophthalmologist because there's a small chance that you could go blind. And I thought, my eyes are the only, excuse me, freaking thing that, that's working right now. Why would I even chance that? And that really started kind of the journey of trying to get to the root cause of what made me ill in the first place. And found healing in a clinic in Switzerland, of all places. Loads and loads and loads of serendipitous moments along the journey that led me to that. And the short of it is, as I was opening up to the possibilities of what is there, I did my first shamanic week, a spiritual retreat that was taught by Alberto Villoldo. Maybe some of your listeners know of him. He's kind of the neo-shaman that brought the knowledge of the Peruvian shamans to the Western world. And he had a program called Grow a New Body, which was basically a combination of nutrition, energy treatments, and also talking about supplementations and how you can actually get back up and running more from a natural perspective. And at the end of that week, we did a despacho, which is one of those celebrations of all of it. And I had my hands up, and I still remember it vividly. I was standing there. It was just on the border of France and Germany and Switzerland, overlooking the Rhine River. And as we were going through the celebration, energy hit my hands for the very first time. Now you got to understand. So like energy is not just a tingling. It was almost like a water hose would hit the palms of my hands, and it startled me. And I was, what in the world is going on? And I asked Alberto afterwards, and he had this infinite wisdom to say, well, I think you should develop this. And so, like rightly you said, I was in the corporate world. I was an executive in a financial institution. I didn't know really what to do with it, but I knew there was something underneath. Talked with a very good friend of mine, and his mom was spiritual, and she suggested, well, maybe you should look into Reiki. I didn't even know what Reiki was at the time. So for the benefit for those of you that don't know, it's a Japanese energy healing modality that you use your hands. And my reaction was probably like most people would have. I was like, now you want me to like look into Reiki? Are you all crazy? Because my entire life was, raising kids, being active in church, being, in the corporate world, everything nicely wrapped up in a bow until it doesn't work anymore. And you kind of are confronted with something, that is, I guess, path into the unknown. And it took me almost a good year before I accepted the call, and I just one morning I woke up and said, I can't run from this anymore. And so then that led to the next. Over the next couple of years, I met a bunch of different indigenous healers and studied with the Quero shamans in Peru. I've been initiated by a beautiful grandmother that is a Yupik elder. She passed away now, but she's part of the 13 indigenous grandmothers, and became a shaman myself, started to get more and more into energy healing, and my last part of it really has been to become a certified end-of-life doula or death doula as well. So I would have never imagined in my wildest dreams that by getting sick in the first place and starting to figuring out why it's happening, that I would end up in this place that I am now. But I am very, very thrilled that I did.
Absolutely. And I think these things happen for a reason, and the timing is, thought out in advance. That almost like you were being pushed in this direction. You saw that there were people who couldn't find healing in traditional medicine, and you were being called to work in that area. But, not everybody, we all see healers and mediums on television that have been doing it since they were teenagers. But not all of us, do these things from teenagers. We have a practical life first and then move across to the spiritual realm. And I think there's something important in that, because you have experienced ill health. And you had another period of ill health some years later, didn't you? A cancer scare or...
That's right. Yeah, 2020 for me is a year probably that most of us want to forget about. And for me, in addition to being in the middle of a pandemic, yes, that's right, I was also diagnosed with lymphoma.
And you're in remission now, or?
Am completely healed, completely well, not even worry about it, one thing. And, the interesting thing is, because you touched a little bit about mediumship as well, because for me, it was like, why is this happening again? I've always had throat issues all my life. Now I know that I've had some karmic things that are happening, and some incarnations that people weren't so nice to me. You can fill in the blanks.
Did past life regression?
What that might look like, right? But the interesting thing for me was when this started to show up, I threw the kitchen sink at it, and I have been studying a little bit about soul plans and, how do we actually come into this world? How do we incarnate? Why do we pick all these crazy lives to actually further ourselves? And in my case, this is somewhat of a personal, and I hope I do not trigger anyone on, that is listening to this. I'm hoping this is more of an encouragement. In my case, I was talking to this medium, and she said, well, out of the various karmic lessons you can pick, you picked about 6 of them, and one in particular has to do with suicide. So, you've killed yourself in multiple incarnations, and this lifetime, really, your one of your lessons is to, die of a natural death. And the most amazing thing happened from that. From the moment that I said I live a long and healthy life and really use that positive affirmation, stuff started to go away. And as a result of that, I was also very, very interested in death and dying, right? So what is really happening at the end of our lives? I feel like, we rally when a newborn child comes in, with a midwife, and that's wonderful. But it we've lost the touch a little bit of what's happening at the end of our lives as we return back, because we're never really gone. It's just our avatar, physical body that goes away. And so just starting to having dialogues now about the process of dying, what's actually happening with that, and then specifically energetically of what you can do to help someone transition more peacefully. I don't think I would have ever in my wildest dreams thought I would, be in next to somebody at the end of their life bedside and performing rituals when I was still in corporate. So my own journey, I think, was really kind of a guidepost to say, hey, there's more to it, and you have more to do in this world than what I thought when I was in my 20s.
Yeah. And that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk to you, was because of the end of life doula, which I'm going to come back to in a minute. But I wanted to touch on the healing again, if that's okay, because you talk about neurocellular therapy, which is something I had never heard. I mean, the majority of us would have heard of Reiki, Rahani healing, all that kind of stuff. But this is something new. Would you explain to us what neurocellular therapy is? Because it's one of the modalities that you use.
That's right. Yeah, I've actually created applied neurocellular therapy as a result of my own journey. So if you think about my energy healing, so Reiki was part of it, and then the shamanic traditions from Peru came in. Grandmother Rita taught me a bunch of stuff. Other healers brought things in, and as I was seeing more and more clients, I found something interesting. So there is 3 types of clients that I see. The first is a once and done. They come, whether that's a physical ailment or something emotional or what have you, but they come in, I see them and they're better. I never see them ever again. Then I have others that need a few. It's almost like going to a chiropractor. They get better. They kind of have some other things that may come up. And then I have the third, most peculiar type of clients. It doesn't work at all. And I was very curious as to what happens there. And honestly, as a healer, your ego is a bit bruised. You kind of feel like you want to help people, and then it doesn't work. And I think the first realization I had was, it's not up to me. I'm not the one that is supposed to be healing. It's really the healing needs to be done by the person that's on my table. And if that person is not open to it, or subconsciously doesn't really believe in it, nothing really works. You have to be willing to do your healing part as well. But interestingly enough, for me, the topic of why isn't this working, or can I do something? And over the last 2 years, I've been introduced in some more modern technology pieces. So there are devices out there such as the Healy. Maybe some of your listeners are aware of that. Was originally developed by a company in Germany that used it to treat astronauts on the space station. So if you can imagine, you can't bring a whole pharmacy with you there. So and the whole vibrational, so plants are vibrational, that you can actually treat people over time and space. That was one. And then the other part of it that I use in my practice here in Pennsylvania is a hypnagogic lamp. So it uses LED and strobe to induce you into kind of a state of, picture it like an LSD trip without drugs. So it is activating your pineal gland, and then it works with your 4 brain waves, so the alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves, to actually get you in a state of complete relaxation, but also heightened awareness. And what I found interesting is that when I put people under the lamp, I almost, there's like a 20 to 40 minute phase where the kind of the brain waves, the neurological pathways are separated from the cell structure. So my energy healing can then go in. So it's almost like, I know this is going to sound weird, but like I can get my whole hand in someone's body to pull tumors out or pull things out. And I thought that was really interesting. So when someone that actually is on my table that sort of believes that, but maybe not really, but then induced into kind of this trance meditative state, you can do a lot more with that. And so that's really kind of been the creation of the applied neurocellular therapy that I'm starting to promote, because I do feel like, when people come to you and want to heal, well, they obviously are here, whether they're pushed by their family or whether they want to come. So, and if they're not there yet intellectually as to like what the healing process is, that there are supporting things. So it's really, to round it all up, what it really is, it's modern technology meeting ancient wisdom.
So is it like a combination of the therapy with the light and psychic surgery at the same time?
Or a surgery, as I would call it. But yes, absolutely. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
I'm just obsessed by a guy called Stephen Turov, who I'm sure you've heard of, who was one of the original psychic surgeons. And I was looking at some of the testimonials of people that had undergone your therapy with the lamp, and I was trying to figure, is there anywhere in Ireland that does this? Because I just want to do it. And I'm taking it that you're the only one that's offering this at the moment.
So the lamp itself, it's called Lucia number 3. So it's also 2 German engineers that have done it. So there are, and we can maybe share the website afterwards as well, there are other therapists around that use the lamp, but not necessarily in that context, right? So some use them more for, as I said, light journeys or meditative states. There's a study by the University of Brighton that put some product people through that felt and found that people are more creative when they are there. So it's around, test taking and anxiety and things. But the way that I use it, I think I'm probably the only one at this point. Yes.
Wow. Well, you know what? I'm just going to tell my husband that I have to go to Pennsylvania. There is just no two ways about it.
Anytime. You're welcome anytime.
So I love that. And I would encourage people, to go to Simone's website. And I have it on screen for those of you who are watching on video, but I will put it in the description box below as well, because just to see the people and how they talk about it and how they look after the sessions, they look like they've been, resting up for like 20 years, and I want to look like that. Okay.
Yeah, so, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish you could do that online. But you do healing online, don't you?
That's right, yeah. I offer both remote and in-person healings as well, yeah.
And
probably the biggest one that I found is what I would call spirit entity removal. So I do a lot of house clearings. So as people have weird things happening, stuff breaks all the time, or, can't sleep, or just, lights going on and off. So I do a lot of energetic house clearings these days worldwide.
Okay. Oh, you go worldwide to do it?
Yeah. It's a little bit, I guess, what I would call Ghostbusters in some way.
Well, I do believe that there can be energies in the house. I make no secret of the fact that I don't believe in the negative energies, the poltergeists and all that. But I'm open to hearing anything because, we don't know everything. And just because I haven't experienced it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. Because what I really want to delve into today is the end-of-life doula. Because here in Ireland, we would have obviously birth doulas, which is, what people would have heard doula used with. But I became aware a few years ago, and I did consider it myself, except I think I'm too soft of a person to help someone prepare for death. So I would love to hear what's involved in being an end-of-life doula, if you could explain to our listeners what it is.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So there's a couple of organizations out there. One that I would definitely recommend for someone that's looking into, there's a person with the name of Suzanne O'Brien, that lives in New York, and she has initiated the Doula Givers Institute, and there is the International Doula Givers Association as a result of that. So there's, probably a couple hundred of us now that went through the certification process. She really comes from, she's a nurse. She was an oncology nurse. She was a hospice nurse, and really has realized that there's a huge gap at the end of life of people that just don't know, what's happening. So families could be completely shocked, right? So you have all of a sudden a terminal diagnosis and you don't know what to do with it. And then I think there's just a little bit of the unknown with end of life that just scares people. I think there's still a bit of a scaredness that comes with all of this. And so I underwent, because I wanted to have an official certification, I underwent the certification with her just recently, so that I could put that, kind of out there, so that there's and really us doulas do perform kind of one major task. So it's the conduit between hospice and or medical staff and the families itself, right? So we're kind of the eyes and ears sometimes, because I don't know about Ireland, but here in the US, it's all very quick and rushed, and they're not providing services even when you need a doctor, right? They don't have all of the things that come in, and so provide a valuable resource when someone is being told that they have a diagnosis. And then me personally, I really started with it from a shamanic perspective. So why can't people let go at the end of life? So I've seen dying patients that just don't want to let go, like literally holding on to the bed, because they're still feeling like, I've missed something, I've done something. Church may have doctrinated into all the sins that we are grown up with, and so my work really then involves an energetic cleansing of the person and the body, so that all this stuff that they're still carrying with them is actually removed from the energetic body itself, and then it allows for someone to to pass more peacefully. And then the other part of it, obviously, is help with advanced directives, help with wills if they're not there yet, but also life reviews, right? To talk about what they have done, things that you want to write out. Encouraging families to be, if there's forgiveness that needs to be taken place, that things can be facilitated in a sacred container. So there's a bunch of different services that Death Doulas do, but I would say, there's definitely these different phases that we're going through. That hiring someone that that knows what to expect would be of benefit. I would definitely, recommend it. And I'm glad to know that there is a movement globally as well now that we're talking about it more, and that there are more folks that want to be equipped with the right tools, to support people with the end of life. Just because it's such a heavy topic, and maybe it's a good time to just mention that how I got into all of this. I had this conversation with a friend of mine. So I've been as I said, in corporation, in financial services, but in travel. So business travel, leisure travel, and all these things. And I said to her, I go, it's so interesting. I've been spending all my 30 years career in travel, and now I'm doing end of life things. And she goes, no, it's not weird at all. It's like it's like you're issuing the last boarding pass for someone. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting, right? That we're sort of conditioned, maybe not quite, and then when you start to open your eyes, that, and I found that to be a beautiful analogy of sorts, right? To basically go on the next beautiful journey home.
I love that analogy, but it's so true. It's so necessary, because everybody's scared, and when you get a terminal diagnosis, touch wood, I haven't had one, but I can't imagine what that would be like. And your head must be spinning. So to have somebody there that's going to take care, and just, with a checklist almost to remind you. And at what point would somebody call you in? Is it when they get diagnosed, when their health starts to decline, right in the last couple of weeks? Like, at what point would you recommend?
I would say, for me, it varies. And maybe it's important to also talk a little bit about how we think about the different phases, right? So we look at them as kind of three main phases that happen at the end of life. So the first one is kind of a shock phase. So that happens when, you're just told you have this cancer diagnosis and you have 4 weeks to live. So you're shocked as the patient. The family is obviously in disbelief, doesn't know what to do. And that's really probably the first phase that someone might go, we need help, like we're completely overwhelmed. And that can happen. The next phase is what we would call a stabilization phase. And that's more, okay, we have gotten into the acceptance that it's coming to the end of life. So what do we need to do, right? So in that phase, like I talked a little bit about, it could be about, are there things that need to be addressed, such as, highest quality of living. Pain now is under control, but maybe you just want to eat a cheeseburger every day and not be told what you can and cannot do. But also conversations, saying goodbyes. It's a good time for family members, friends to come. And then obviously the transition phase. And I would say the transition phase then for me is, it's really the time right before a person dies. So it can be anywhere from hours to days. And I would say the most calls I get still is in this transition phase. When we know it's coming to the end, they want to do something, nice. In fact, I just recently helped transition an older grandmother that was paralyzed, dementia, can't speak anymore, but just we knew that there was something holding her back. And so in that space, I guess you could call, in the old days, you call a priest, and the priest would come and kind of give the last rites. It is a little bit like that as well, except that for me, it's more about, playing beautiful music. It's about massaging someone's feet and or hands, have good essential oils there. We do a lot of smudging. We, end up doing a lot of rituals. And there's also, the importance of allowing someone to go, right? To basically give permission, to leave. So to say any of those phases, someone would be calling me, but lately it's been in this kind of transition phase of like, okay, we just want to make sure that this person, in essence, can fall asleep and pass peacefully.
And let go. Do you know, as a medium, the amount of times that I have connected with spirit that have come back and said, you gave me permission to go. And just by whispering to somebody at the very end that we'll be okay if you need to leave, it's like you're giving them that permission to let go. And it just lets them leave with, a clear mind or a clear conscience, if you like. And it's so important.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the most... go ahead.
No, please continue.
One of the most amazing signs that things continue and that there's more with life was, this is now 2 years ago, probably one of my first ones. He was the father of a good friend of mine. Also came home in a hospital bed. He came home to die, and so we performed this cleansing ritual and just made him comfortable. And he passed a couple days afterwards, and his widow called me and said, this was amazing. They, obviously came in and took the body, and she kept the pillow that he was on and took it into her bedroom upstairs. And she said at night it was glowing. There was rainbow colors, almost like a disco ball coming out of this pillow. And for her, it was such a comforting thing to have. And then it was, it faded, and about 48 hours afterwards it was gone. But, you can't explain this scientifically, but the signs are all there. So, when someone really is able to go, and I could go on forever, there's all these amazing signs, but that was one that stuck with me as kind of just a beautiful reminder that, hey, we're just here, couple of years, couple decades, and when it's time to go, it's just the body that stays back, and the soul, continues to live.
It does, absolutely. And, just even while you're talking, just a question that popped into my own mind. Is there a part of what you do that helps the family afterwards. And where this question is coming from is, a couple of weeks ago I spoke to a mother who lost her son to suicide. He was 28 years old. And, you know, one thing that she said that resonated with me was that, you know, it was the early hours of the morning. She was, you know, called out of her bed and whatever. She said she stood in front of a wardrobe thinking, what am I going to wear? What does somebody wear to go and see their dead son? You know, and like that kind of shock, you know, I don't know, like, is there any part of what you do as a doula that helps the family afterwards? Or can you be called in that situation where it's sudden, it's unexpected?
Yes, definitely so. That one is a hard one. And my heart goes out to your friend. You know, I think losing a child, and especially in suicide, is tough, right? And I just now mentioned suicide, right? So it's the irony that now this comes up a second time. So maybe this is something that we are, you know, supposed to talk. But I just want to acknowledge how hard, you know, that must have felt for her. In my case, what I would normally recommend is, you know, can you go and see a medium? Like, there's sometimes I just want to talk with someone. I want to know that this person is okay. I want to have a contact to, you know, to the other side. And there's some beautiful people. I'm not sure what, you know, Sandie, whether you're performing that too, but like there's some amazing mediums that I would call as help to just say, can we make contact? And I think just knowing that it is okay and that, you know, that this took place is one of the things. And then, you know, there's, in a sense, the celebration of life, to talk about the good days and talk about, you know, how funny someone was and honor their life. You know, I think that's a big piece of it. We sometimes would listen to music and just say like, hey, like, let's go through Spotify or Apple Music or what have you, or you know, the old LPs, and just jam to tunes that this person, you know, would have loved to listen to. So there's definitely a phase of acknowledgement, and also that there's this deep sadness, and that it's okay to, you know, to cry and have lots of Kleenex at hand. But I think the question really is, you know, the why. Why has this happened? I mean, I hear that a lot, and I don't have the answer. You know, and so that's why I usually recommend, right, to talk to someone that may be in contact with, you know, just to make sure that the loved ones are comforted. And
yeah, it's a tough.
And I get a bit emotional. You can tell it's a tough one.
It really is. And you know, I spoke to that lady because obviously September was Suicide Awareness Month and, you know, Suicide Prevention Month. And so there's a lot of people sharing their stories, so it is a difficult one. I appreciate that. And you know, one thing that you've said several times, you may not have realized it, and not exactly your words, I'm paraphrasing here, but go with the flow is a big thing, you know, in what you do, in both in, you know, what you've been through, how you've come through it, you know, and how you work with people. You know, it's go with the flow. That seems to be a mantra of yours. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, isn't there this great saying that if you want to make God laugh, make a plan? And there's truth to that, right? And when we get out of our own way and start letting life, you know, go, and at least for me, my perception was it's been a wild ride. But my life is so enriched, you know, after these last 7 years. Other people could say, oh my gosh, like, you know, what else can you go through? And I don't want to diminish that. There's lots of people out there that are going through, you know, illnesses and you know, that can't be cured. So just for me, I want to just state that, right? So not that I come across ignorant, but for me, getting in the flow of things was vitally important, to just get out of my own way and really let spirit do the things that you know, she has me do. And you know, so now being able to do the work that I do, and I like you mentioned, no treatment is the same. I just look at the individual that's coming what is needed, what kind of ritual is needed to serve this person best. And, to some degree, it's also what is the lesson learned in all of this, right? So if there is a lesson learned to go through it, you don't always want to snap your fingers and make someone better, but walk alongside with that person to, to provide insights as to what's coming in. And what I would, yeah, right. And Sandie, I mean, one of the things that was wild for me, I don't know about you, is developing or realizing that we have these clairs, right? So in my case, I have clairvoyance. I see things. I have claircognizance. I know stuff that I can't know. And I remember the first time I saw something on a person's body, I was startled a bit. But we all have these gifts inside of us, right? So the intuition and the clairs, we just kind of lost it. We've been so, in this capitalistic Western world and all about progress. But I mean, we survived for thousands of years, prior to that, without the help of modern technology. So, the reason I'm bringing that up is I think it really is amazing for us to start tuning into our abilities and our, clairs, our gifts. And I think we all play a part in making this a better world, and whatever you can do to support that. And so for me, being on this, I guess, healer journey and helping the collective is definitely what I feel deep down. That's what I'll be doing until I'm leaving this world. But I'm not planning on ever retiring. This is something that I want to do until I just can't.
Until you fall over and you're gone. From my own perspective, 100%, I mean, the same as you said you were 4 years old, you can remember seeing an angel. I've seen spirit all my life, but then my grandmother, my great-grandmother, they were all readers all down through my family, so they understood what I was seeing. So it was never, shooed away. It was always spoken openly about. But, it was when I got older and started to tell other people, like, nobody wants to be any different. So, but what I found is that it was easier to just go along with what my spirit guides wanted, because I fought them for a lot of my teenage years, because I didn't want to be different to my friends.
Oh, did you too? Years. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I just didn't get a night's sleep for a long, long time. But, when you start to work with them, and, if people are listening and they find that they have spirit around, and I say to them, if they're waking you up at nighttime, I sit up in the bed and I tell them, look, it's dark outside my window. I still have a physical body that needs to rest. But if you come back tomorrow, I will speak with you. But if you do something like that, then you have to give spirit the time the following day. It may just be 10 minutes, while you're on the train on the way home, or a bus, or whatever it might be. But give them 10 minutes to tell you or show you what they wanted to show you. Because as Simone says, go with the flow, because if they want to show it to you, they will show it to you. And if it's 4 o'clock in the morning, then so be it. You will see it.
That's all right. But it's true though about office hours. Like I had to establish office hours myself, because otherwise it just never it never quits. And I think that's okay. Like you said, we are in this physical world and we do need sleep. So sometimes you just have to set some parameters.
You absolutely do. Yeah, 100%.
But what was it for you? Like similarly, like I grew up in Switzerland, and I was a teacher's son, and teacher is an elected official. Still, you can still boot out a teacher if you don't like them, through the electoral votes. And I remember that my mom would always say, "Don't be so loud. Like, what will the neighbors think?" And being now what I do now, right? It's almost a little bit like this voice comes back of like, well, I can't do what I'm doing. Like, what will people think? So I don't know whether you ever went through this, and I think that was the biggest chains that we had to kind of rip apart, to go out and feel safe with our gifts and abilities.
Hey, I grew up in Catholic Ireland, 13 years in convent school with the nuns. So you didn't talk about seeing spirit. It just wasn't done. Even though my grandmother and my great-grandmother were both readers, they were able to read, but they were still very religious. They still had their Catholic faith. This was just something they could do. They were always just able to read spirit. So, and I wouldn't say they necessarily encouraged me, but, they didn't tell me, to stop talking about it, that I was seeing things or anything like that. But yeah, in the same way, I suppose I was probably 30 before I really started to say it to people outside of my family, and start reading for people publicly. I know you're going to say, now, Sandie, you're hardly 30, are you? I am.
But isn't it crazy if you think about, you talk about church and religion, and the Bible is full of angels and full of angelic meetings and all that. So why shouldn't we be able to see things, and why wouldn't it be normal that there is more to between heaven and earth that we just can't always pinpoint? I find that kind of a peculiar thing of how we as a humankind all of a sudden decided, oh, this doesn't exist.
Yeah, 100%. And we're taught a lot. I don't know if you grew up in a Christian faith or not, but we're taught a lot about heaven and hell and purgatory and all. But when you actually apply it to where we are, it makes so much sense. Not in the I suppose, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's like an outside view, like the very edges of what we would see as heaven or hell or purgatory. But there are kind of the different levels of heaven, that you can call it hell, you can call it heaven or whatever. But the 7 different levels, I suppose, the Hindu way, I really buy into that. And even when what spirit has taught me over the years, it just seems, I don't know if that's the way they show it to you, but it's always been the way that they've shown it to me, that there is no hell. There's nobody burning in hell forever. We haven't done anything so bad that we can't atone for it. So, but, try saying that to a priest back, when I was growing up in the 1980s, it just wasn't done.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. But look, and this isn't supposed to be a church bashing, but I think there is definitely, right, there is a little bit of the controlling humans, and if you can make up all kinds of story to scare people, of course, to make them do what you want them to do. I think there was definitely in the Middle Ages, a lot of that happening. And I'm not sure or whether the same is happening around the world or in Ireland where you're at, but in Switzerland there's a lot of talk, and actually the church having to all the sexual abuse and all that stuff that's happened over the years that now is coming to the forefront. So it is really, I think, transformational. The church has to finally realize that kind of the old way of thinking about, and priests can't marry and all these things, that this is kind of an old model. But my point in this, is through my own experiences and studies, and I see it really in a way of, we have this, and by the way, great Disney movie, if you ever wanted to see it, is called Soul, and that probably it's no kids movie, but it's kind of like in a playful way. Depicts or talks about what I believe. So there is a bit of the soul planning. So before you incarnate, you want to go, all right, so what do I want in my next incarnation? What are all the things I want to experience and do? And then as a soul, there's no good or bad. There's no evil or good, or, it's just an experience. And so you then pick, obviously, people that are going to agree to do certain things to you, or, be a part of this learning experience. And then you jump in and you incarnate and you go through, this life journey. And then in my own case, and I'm sure, why are we talking about midlife crisis, right? I was mid-40s when I started to get sick. I really feel it not so much as a midlife crisis, but as an opportunity to renegotiate your soul contracts. So it's a wake-up call for you to say, is this still the life I want to do, or have I learned, and is it time to move on? So, a lot of a lot of people get their Harley Davidson or, a fancy car or something like this and go back to sleep. And others are bold and brave and wake up and go, no, I want to change my life. I want to do something different. And so then, I feel, at least for me, this was a renegotiation that I've been able to do to now do what I do. And then at the end of your life, so when you come towards the end, I see it as a life review. So when you leave your physical body and the soul transitions up into heaven, I'll still call it that, we are not going through this, judge stuff. We are the judge, we are the jury, we're the accuser. And we are going to review, what have we set out to do? What have we done? Where have we fallen short? Before we then can really go. And I think that's what you're talking a little bit on the different levels of heaven afterwards, right? To move on to the next phase. Yeah. And what I find beautiful that in a technique that I've learned with the Kero shamans in Peru, the work that they are doing and what I've learned is really to clear the sludge of all that stuff. So meaning, when I'm able to get in front or with someone before they pass away and really cut energetic cords, clear, all the old beliefs and patterns and all that energetically, I believe that then the process of the life review can go faster, so that you don't have to sit there in human time 2-3 years to kind of process before you can go. And I find that to be a very beautiful thought, really, to say, okay, so if I can help someone to actually get through this and not have to stay in this level or this phase for too long and then move on, that to me resonates very, 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 very deeply.
But I totally agree with everything that you said, but there's another aspect too that you have to take into account, because sometimes it can't be done so quickly. Because I always say, if life is like an exam, we won't see the results of it until we leave it behind, So, something that we've done here, and some people may not even realize it, so something that I was talking about on a podcast recently, it was somebody that I came across that was talking about the legal implications of writing one of his children out of his will. And, everybody in this spiritual group that I was in said the same thing to him. And I was so encouraged by it, that people are actually opening up to this, that, this is something that will resonate for years afterwards. So yes, he can decide to cut one of his children out of the will, and he can go over to the spirit world and he can say, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But the consequences of what he has actually done may not be seen for 2, 3, 4, or 5 different generations. So it's not always, I get what you're saying and I totally agree with everything you're saying, but some of those things can't be just glossed over or go past very quickly. So there's a lot of everything, and I'm not perfect. I have things that I'm sure I'm going to have to atone for, and make up for, when I get over to the spirit world as well. But it is like the results of an exam, and that's the way I've always seen it, because that's the way I was shown it when I was a little girl by spirit. It's the results of an exam. And with regards to the I call it the life path or the soul plan, I do Pythagorean numerology, and Pythagoras, as we know, he was one of the early proponents of this whole reincarnation, soul plan and everything. So you're preaching to the choir here. I totally get everything that you're saying, and I agree 150% with it all. It's a complicated thing, something that we won't get to the end of in one podcast, but definitely I think it's something that the whole idea of the end of life doula, it gets people to think about these things and to say the goodbyes that they need to say and the sorries that they need to say, or take the hugs that they need to take. Don't wait until the end. And that's one message we can leave people with today, is don't wait until it's too late.
Don't wait until it's too late, yeah. And, the other thing too that I would say is, as we do healing work, we don't just heal ourselves, we really are able to heal generations forward and generations backwards. So like you said, if you have certain things that you've done, it can have a ripple effect. But on the reverse side of that, of really truly healing the karmic patterns of a family, we're going deep into ancestral line, to heal that as well. And I find that to be absolutely beautiful. If you think about it, like, you and I both are now on a podcast talking about deeply spiritual things, and we probably would have been murdered, a couple hundred years ago of even speaking this. So that we are
no doubt.
In this new state, right, that we get to talk about. But I agree with the point you're making. It's in this, and I want to acknowledge again your friend with the suicide, right? When someone dies like that, it's really, really hard, because we always go through, I wish I would have told him that. I wish I would have done that. And so, even with illnesses that come in, I hear this in corporate all the time. Oh, puts it in perspective, doesn't it? We should do more. And then, a lot of us are just falling right back into, the lives. So my encouragement really for those of you that are listening is, love it up out there. Talk about what other people mean to you. Don't hold grudges. It's going to make you ill. It's going to, bring more pain into this world. And really, get out of bed, enjoy the world. It's beautiful fall, that's coming. The leaves are changing. It's a beautiful time to just thank Spirit for, that you're alive, and you have been placed with people around you, whether that's in your work environment, within your church, and your family, and just really, 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 live it up, live life to the fullest, because we don't know when it's gone. And if you are in a tough situation with someone that has been diagnosed with a terminal illness, just know that there's help out there. So reach out to a Death Doula. Maybe we can even put the link in as well. As I said, there are beautiful souls out there that are providing this service. If you need help and or reach out to me, I'm happy to connect you with people in your neck of the woods, as we would call it.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much, Simone. Would really appreciate that. And just before I let you leave, I want to come back to another point that you made earlier, that the people that come to you and the people that want this, they need to believe. But I'm going to add on to that, you need to believe, that there is a spirit world. If you're going to take healing from a spiritual being or entity, you have to believe in it. But my feeling is that you have to want it as well. And while I love, the fact that you can buy a reading for somebody or you can buy a healing session for somebody, please speak to them about it first and make sure it's what they want, because if they're not ready for it, then it's not the right time. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And I would add to that, and it goes a little bit into the integrity of the healer community as well. Nobody should ever work on someone or heal someone that is A, either not aware, or B, doesn't want it. I've seen this time and time again where someone will come to me and say, can you help my son? Can you help my husband? But we or I don't have permission from this person directly. And I will always say, I'm so sorry. I have lots of compassion, but I will not work on that, because it's our, desire. So yeah, I think we're saying the same thing, that unless you personally want to heal, A, we shouldn't interfere, and B, if you're not in that space, it's harder to heal. On the contrary, if you are willing to heal and absolutely open, oh my gosh, anything is possible. I believe that truly.
I agree. And yes, I will put any links that I have, and if there's anything that you would like me to link in the description box here, please do forward it on to me, Simone. Thank you so much for your time. I could talk to you forever, because we're definitely on the same wavelength here. We're coming at it from different sides, but I think we all have the same goal at the end of the day. So thank you so much for giving us your time. I really appreciate it. And to everyone who's listening, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode of Life After Life. So until then, take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Discussing everything about the afterlife.